Hi everybody, it's Miss Hamill and I'm here today to talk to you about chemistry. Now this is just the basic general chemistry that you need to know for biology. Just the simple stuff. Hopefully it is a review for you all. If not, then maybe you'll learn a little bit something in this lecture. Alright, so this is a biology class. Why in the world are we learning about chemistry? The simple answer is biology has chemistry in its foundation. So, atoms are the basic unit of matter. Atoms make up elements, elements make up compounds and molecules, molecules make up organelles, and organelles make up cells. So, all living things are made up of cells. Cells are the basic unit of life. So before you understand the cells and the biomolecules, you have to understand the basics first. So all living things are going to be made up of chemical compounds, and the first job of a biologist, which is you, is to understand the chemistry of life. So some of the basics: everything is made up of matter, and atoms are that unit of matter. Atoms are made up of protons, which are positive and found in the nucleus, neutrons, which have no charge or are neutral, and they are also found in the nucleus, and electrons that are found outside the nucleus. The nucleus is the center, and the electrons orbit the nucleus. This is called the electron cloud or orbital. And different kinds of atoms put together of a single type of atom form an element. So all elements of one particular type together equals an element. So these are just some models of an atom. You can see that in the center we have our protons and our neutrons, and circling the nucleus we have our electrons. So these are just various forms. These are called the Bohr models here. So the atomic structure, or how many atoms or how many protons an atom has, determines what element we are working with. The number of protons is going to be the atomic number, and this also tells you the number of electrons. So for example, if we have, we'll look back here, 6 protons, we have 6 electrons. In this molecule we have 6 neutrons. This makes up carbon. So the atomic number is 6. For sodium, we have 11 protons. So we have 11 electrons. And we have 12 neutrons. So this must be an isotope. We'll talk about that later. So all atoms of an element have the same chemical properties. So all carbon atoms found in the carbon element are going to have the same properties. And since they have the same properties, they are going to behave the same, and these properties will not change. Now, all living things do require elements, and there are about 25 elements found in living things, and they are essential for life. 4 of these elements make up 96% of living matter. They are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Now you can think of that we are a lot water. So H2O, that is the hydrogen and oxygen. We get carbon from the food that we eat and nitrogen from the air that we breathe. For other elements that make up the rest of the living things are phosphorus, calcium, sulfur, and potassium. And we get these from the foods that we eat. So here is just a basic layout of the elements found in the human body. As you can see, we are mostly oxygen, then we have carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, then calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and sulfur. Then we have minimal amounts of sodium, chloride, and magnesium. Isotopes are going to be atoms that have a different number of neutrons than protons. So the atomic mass is going to be the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. If there's a different number, their neutrons are typically heavier. So there are more neutrons than protons, it gives it a heavier atomic mass. So here we have a isotope of carbon. So we have carbon 13, it has 7 neutrons, and carbon 14, it has 8 neutrons. And these isotopes can be unstable, and they can cause nuclear reactions or decay. So carbon 13 is what we use to date fossils and artifacts from the past. So they use the half-life or the decay rate of the carbon 13 in order to determine the object's age. They split off neutrons and or protons, and this is radioactivity. And it can be used as a biological tool, as I said, dating, or it can be hazardous. So nuclear reactions can be hazardous, especially because of the unstable state of these isotopes. So now we're going to talk about bonding properties and how and why things bond or elements bond. So it is basically because of the electrons, why they are going to bond to one atom to another. So the effect of electrons' chemical behavior of an atom depends on its electron arrangement, which also depends on the number of electrons in its outermost shell, which is called the valence shell. So here you can see that we have different shells, and the number of electrons in that outermost shell determines what that electron wants to do. Does it want to share electrons with another molecule? Does it want to give one up? Or does it want to take one from another atom? So elements and their valence shell. So elements in the same rows are going to have the same number of shells. So if you look here, hydrogen and helium, they are in the same row. They are going to have the same number of shells, which is 1. We have elements in the second row. They are going to have the same number of shells, which is 2. Elements in the same column are going to have this same valence and the same chemical properties. So you can see here, hydrogen, lithium, and sodium all have 1 electron in their outermost shell or their valence shell. And whoops, you can see too, nitrogen and phosphorus also have the same number of electrons. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so elements in their valence shells continued moving from left to right. Each element has a sequential addition of electrons and protons. So we have here hydrogen. Its atomic number is 1. It has 1 electron. It has 1 proton. Helium here is 2. It has 2 protons, 2 electrons. Lithium is 3. It has 3 protons and 3 electrons, and so on and so forth. So chemical reactivity, this is how much a chemical or an atom wants to bond with another atom. So atoms tend to want to complete a partially filled outer shell or valence shell, or empty a partially filled outer valence shell. And this tendency drives chemical reactions, so the need for chemical bonding. Electronegativity is going to be the measure of the attraction of an atom for the electrons in a chemical bond. So as you go across from left to right, the electronegativity increases. And as you go down the periodic table, so down the periods, the electronegativity decreases. So these are the different types of bonds. First, we have the ionic bond, and these occur when one electron is transferred from one atom to another, and it forms positive and negative ions. Positive ions are called cations, and negative ions are called anions. These form weak bonds. An example here would be salt dissolving in water. Sodium chloride here is going to be a bond or a compound formed by an ionic bond. Sodium is going to give an electron to chlorine. Sodium becomes positive because now it has more protons than electrons, so it has more positive. And chloride, the ion, is going to become negative because it has more electrons than protons. So you can see the cartoon here. It is like a give-take relationship. One atom is taking electrons from another atom. Covalent bonds are going to be a strong bond formed between two atoms that need an electron. So they're going to share this pair of electrons. So both atoms hold on to their electrons and they share them together. And this forms molecules. An example would be water. So water molecules, they share the oxygens and the hydrogens share electrons. And it's going to take energy to separate a water molecule. Multiple covalent bonds are when two or more atoms share more than one pair of electrons. So this can form double bonds, they're sharing two pairs of electrons, or triple bonds, which are three pairs of electrons, and these form very strong bonds, so they're very hard to break. O2 is an example. There is a double bond between the two oxygens. So one atom can form covalent bonds with two or more atoms, and they form larger molecules. And this is important with carbon. So carbon will, a lot of times, have multiple bonds between different atoms. And we will see that when we're forming our macromolecules. Polar covalent bonds are what happens when electrons are not shared equally by two atoms. Water is going to be a polar molecule. So oxygen has a stronger attraction for the shared electrons than hydrogen. So oxygen has a higher electronegativity. So here we have only one electron on hydrogen, but they're being shared, so we have two, and we have 8 on oxygen, but they're being shared, so we have a total of 10. So since there are more electrons on the oxygen, it is pulling the hydrogen molecules down. So it's just a slight difference in the positive and negative sides of the atom or the compound. So oxygen is going to be slightly more negative and hydrogen slightly more positive. So two hydrogens in the water molecule form an angle, and the water molecule is polar. Like I said, oxygen is negative, hydrogen is positive, and this is going to lead to the interesting properties of water, which we will talk about next lecture. So here is the example. As you see, the hydrogen is being pulled towards the oxygen, causing the bent shape. And here's just a cute cartoon to help you remember. Here's a polar bear in water. Help, help, I'm dissolving. And this brown bear saying, but bears are insoluble. And he's saying easy, or that's easy for you to say, you are not polar. So the polarity allows things to dissolve easily in water. Okay, hydrogen bonds are going to be weak chemical bonds between an electronegative atom and hydrogen bound to another electronegative atom. So this is what causes the base pairs in DNA to bond together, and this is between two water molecules. So hydrogen bond occurs between two water molecules, and this can occur wherever an OH exists in a larger molecule, and it's a weak bond. The last force is called van der Waals forces, and this is going to be interactions between nonpolar substances, and it's due to random variation in electron distribution in a molecule. Very weak force, and this is what enables geckos and spiders to crawl on the wall. There's going to be a slight attraction between the tiny hairs on the fingers and the wall. So the different positive and negative between the fingertips and the wall allows them to stick. Hope this helped, guys, and have a great day.